afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this late edition of Australian Indian Radio's daily life updates. And it's a beautiful day out there. Today, I don't have the weather for you today because it is a beautiful day there, and there is very little chance of the rain that's going to take place. But today we're looking at, and what's been making news is the coronavirus cases, especially here in Brisbane or Queensland, I should say. Well, let's look at the numbers first, and then we'll go into the details. So the confirmed cases is 1,076 with 1,063 recoveries and 6 deaths recorded. Whole of Australia, there's 15,304 confirmed cases, which is a lot. I must say that is a lot. The number is, increasing day by day. So that is not a very good thing. But recovery is 9,431, and the recorded deaths is 167. Worldwide, the number is 16.7 million, and with the recovery at 9.7 million and 659k deaths recorded. So that's a big number. So what's happened? What's went wrong in Queensland? I thought we were doing quite well, and everyone was applauding each other, and things were easing, and everyone thought that, okay, here we are, out of the danger line. But then something happened. So here's our Premier closing the borders, as he says.
Let me say I'm absolutely furious that this has happened, that these two people have gone to Victoria, have come back and have been given to authorities misleading information. There will be a thorough police investigation here, but now we have to act as a community, and in the areas where the Chief Health Officer says need to be closed, will be closed. And I urge people in those areas, when that list goes out later on today, to please ensure that if you are feeling sick, you must go and get tested. It is incredibly important now more than ever. If you are feeling sick, you must go and get tested. So today I can also confirm that I've also spoken with the Deputy Premier and the Chief Health Officer, and Queensland will now be declaring Greater Sydney a COVID-19 hotspot. There has been more outbreaks in other parts of Greater Sydney, and that will now become a COVID-declared hotspot, taking effect from 1 a.m. on Saturday morning. We have done this to ensure that we give notice to Queenslanders that may want to return home. And I also want to say now that it is going to cause an inconvenience to families, and I know there may be a lot of events that are planned over the next few days, few weeks, but it is too important. We must protect Queenslanders. So your safety comes first, and we are in extraordinary times at the moment, and we have to do everything we can. So that will take effect 1 a.m. Saturday morning. So as I said yesterday, Queenslanders should not be travelling to Sydney. The Greater Sydney area will encompass 34 local government areas. So that will be 31 new areas plus the 3 existing areas. So we have to act swiftly here, and that is exactly what my government is doing. Are there any questions on those matters, and then we can move on to Bundaberg issues?
What will it take to reclose Queensland borders, and how much of New South Wales has declared hotspot for this to happen?
Okay, so we have a hard border closure with Victoria, and what is extremely disappointing is that these two people went to Victoria. That's what they did, and now we have to act swiftly and quickly. And let me assure Queenslanders that we have been preparing for these scenarios. We have done this before, and we will do it again. But because of the negligent actions of these two, we now have to do a lot of contact tracing, and it is going to be an inconvenience to many people. But it has to be done, and we will do that. As I said, we are monitoring the situation in New South Wales every single day. I want to assure Queenslanders. Now, we have been taking the Chief Health Officer's advice, every step of the way during this pandemic, and it has stood Queensland in very good stead, and we will continue to do that. So when the Chief Health Officer advises the Queensland Government, advises myself to close the border, we will close the border. So we will be monitoring very carefully, and the signs that we would be looking for is further outbreaks of community transmission in areas outside of Greater Sydney.
What would the border closures mean for tourism and business?
This is going to have an impact on some of our tourism industries. So we will be speaking with our tourism leaders, but as we know, Queenslanders' health comes first. We must protect Queenslanders' health. And what I'm seeing at the moment, and I've been seeing this as I've travelled across the length and breadth of this state, is that Queenslanders are out there supporting Queenslanders, and Queenslanders like their lifestyle, and because of our health response, it has meant that Queenslanders can go about basically their normal lives. They can go to work, they can go to cafes, they can go to restaurants, and they can go to holidays. But we do not want a second wave here. We do not want widespread community transmission. So let me say the next 24 to 48 hours is very crucial here in Queensland, and that is because we need to be making sure that any of those people who may have come into contact with the 2 confirmed cases need to go into quarantine and also need to be tested. So we will be putting out that public information today, and I please urge the media to distribute that public information far and wide. I also know there are a lot of community networks out there as well. I'm asking the community networks to publish that information as well. If we all do that, we will continue to be safe. And the Chief Health Officer, we've had meetings this morning. The Chief Health Officer, the Police, the Deputy Police Commissioner, the Deputy Premier, myself, my Director General, Minister Hinchcliffe was on the phone line as well. We are acting very swiftly here. Clinics are being set up. The colleges is being closed, fever clinics are being set up. We are acting swiftly, and that is exactly what we have been prepared for, and that is exactly what we are doing.
And as the Premier said, that we need to get that word out there, through our community networks and through our media channels. And that's exactly what we are doing, is when we rebroadcast this news, is that we need to get that message really out there. So it couldn't be clearer. But one of the things that really gets me there is, when they mention, the authorities mentioned that they were prepared for this. Well, why are you prepared? Couldn't we take some preventive measures that this never happened? The borders should have been closed. How irresponsible of these two to go to Victoria and then come back and then wander around in the manner that they did, putting everyone else's life at risk. But just before going on to this press conference, the Premier had a slightly different message, but let's nevertheless listen to that message as well.
I want to thank everyone for coming forward and getting tested, and that's what we need to continue to do. So if you're sick, stay home, get tested. And of course, we're continuing to monitor what's happening in Victoria and New South Wales very, very closely. We have the police and our emergency services at our borders, at our airports, checking people as they come across our border. New South Wales has a border in place with Victoria. We have said very clearly that we have a hard border closure with Victoria. We have 3 declared hotspots with New South Wales, and if there are further outbreaks, we will not hesitate to take action. I think everyone knows how significant our response to COVID is. Just the other day, we also had we did scenario testing. We're always constantly making sure we're ready. Just like we do for cyclones and floods, we always get together all of our key agencies to make sure we are prepared. It is a big job. It is a huge job for our police, our emergency services, SES, and of course our health professionals. And every single week we are looking at our plans, we are monitoring, and we are always making sure that we are ready. And let me say that...
And as she mentioned once again there, that we are ready, but, when incident like this happens, where has that readiness been? So there are a lot of, if you follow the social media posts, there's such a big outro there from many people who have been very vocal in saying that how could the authorities let this happen? But once again, the message is it has happened. all we can do now is try and control it and make sure that we don't, spoil it any further for all the people. So as he mentioned that, there are many functions, there's many events that have been planned that might be put on hold or postponed. One such event is Gopios India Day Fair on 15th of August, which has been postponed in the interest of public health, which comes first, as the Premier just mentioned there. Well, just before coming on live, we had this clip come in from Canberra of the PM's press conference after the National Cabinet meeting. Let's hear from him.
Good morning, everyone. I'm joined by Professor Murphy this morning in his capacity as the Secretary of the Department of Health. The reason for that is, as Secretary for the Department of Health, that he is directly overseeing the operations of the department and engaging with the Victorian Government in relation to the aged care issues currently that we're addressing in Victoria. Of course, Professor Kelly would normally join me on broader issues and will continue to do that in our normal updates and briefings, whether it be on National Cabinet or on broader reporting that we do on the pandemic. But given that Professor Murphy is the one directly responsible in his duties as Secretary for the Health Department, that's why he joins me here today. I just want to make that very clear. Everyone's doing a tremendous job amongst our CMO team, as they are in the Department of Health, and as you know, there are many challenges. The situation that we've been facing, particularly in recent days and weeks in Victoria for aged care, has been very distressing. It is very distressing, first and foremost, to the families of those who have loved ones in aged care facilities. The most vulnerable in our community have always been our highest concern when it comes to managing the health issues associated with this pandemic. That has always been true for the elderly, but it has also been true for those who have many other comorbidities, those who are undergoing chemotherapy treatment, those in Indigenous communities in remote areas. We have always been very aware of those who have been most vulnerable in our community. And elderly persons, particularly those in facilities, which these days, as we know, aged care has changed. It's one of the reasons why I called the Royal Commission into aged care. Because the nature of the demands on our aged care services have changed. In many ways, aged care facilities, in many instances, have become a form of pre-palliative care in Australia. Many years ago, that was quite different. But these days, particularly with the in-home aged care options that we are continuing to expand across the country, more Australians are choosing, and it's a good choice to be able to make, to remain at home. But those who are moved into aged care facilities are often moved in at a much more advanced stage. And all of us who have had to make those decisions in relation to loved ones understand that. And so I think that attaches to it a particular sensitivity in the challenges that we're now facing. The challenges of dealing with aged care are not unique to Australia. And indeed, in every country in the world where there is sustained community transmission, it is inevitable that this will find its way into aged care facilities. When it rains, everyone gets wet, and that is what we're seeing with broad-based community transmission in Victoria. As the Premier rightly said, if you are ill, do not go to work. That is true if you work in a meat processing plant. It is true if you work in a chemist shop. It is true if you work in a restaurant. It is true if you're a journalist, a politician, whoever you may be. An aged care worker especially. We have, I think, over 750 healthcare workers, in particular in Victoria, who have been infected with COVID. This is the product of community transmission. And whatever workplace it is, then workplaces are vulnerable, and that's why the Victorian Government has rightly put in place the protections they have to try and protect against that workplace transmission. Now, in relation to aged care facilities in Victoria, there are over 430 such facilities in Melbourne. It's a large number of facilities. We have seen some very distressing and concerning situations arise in a handful of those facilities. In facilities such as St Basil's, in facilities such as Epping Gardens, where we've been working very consistently over recent days, in Kirkbrae. There are a range of other facilities where there have been COVID cases, around 13, that we are keeping a very close watch on. And
as the Prime Minister mentioned, they are keeping a very close look on that. And it is very timely that the Royal Commission into the aged care takes place, because the whole system needs reform. As we mentioned yesterday and day before yesterday as well, there's been a lot of talks, and I had some comments and some discussions with some people as well. Finding that balance between either staying at home with the loved ones or putting people into the aged care, where there are facilities to really look after them, but do they actually get looked after? There's a generalization that many times people who are working there, do that on a daily basis, and they get sick and tired of it, and for them it's just another process to get on with it. But while they're at home, the things could be different because they're close to their family members. But then, of course, a lot of family members and close ones often don't look after the aged, the elderly as well as they should. So there's elder abuse, there's people who have had their, money's been controlled. So financial control has been taken out of their hands, and all those kind of things that happen. So that's a sector which really, really needs to be looked at. And it is alarming to see some figures that come out. But of course, we are living in such a society where, for elderly people and vulnerable people to stay at home is difficult because the number one, not everyone stays at home. I'm not talking about now or during the pandemic, but in normal circumstances, normally people go to work. And then these people are left at their home, and should something happen, they need some kind of attention straight away, and there's no one there to provide that kind of help and assistance to them. So it is a catch-66 situation, and people are worried. People are discussing. There's many community organizations in which this has been tabled and discussed, and of course within the multicultural circles as well, within the department and the boards, this discussion does take a lot of space. But anyway, we'll keep moving on and see how it all progresses. But of course, did you know that yesterday was the World Hepatitis Day? As we know, throughout the world there have been awareness that's been raised, and right here in Brisbane, our ECCQ always raises that awareness, and at their request, we're bringing this here in the interest of the community knowledge of World Hepatitis Day.
Hello, I'm Marianne. Do you know that the 28th of July every year is World Hepatitis Day? Hepatitis is a liver disease affecting millions of people around the world. It affects more people and causes more deaths than HIV. The liver is a vital organ in our body, and it has many functions, such as it removes toxins, stores vitamins, and helps digestion. People cannot live without their liver. There are 5 types of hepatitis. Whilst they can all affect the liver, they have many differences too. Today we will talk about hepatitis B and C, because they are the most common hepatitis in Australia and around the world. Both hepatitis B and C can cause serious health problems, such as liver cirrhosis, liver cancer, and death. Nearly 80% of all liver cancers in the world are caused by these 2 hepatitis. Many people with hepatitis B and C in Australia were born overseas, including people from Asian, African, and Middle Eastern countries. Sadly, many people who have hepatitis B and C do not know that they have them. This is because they are silent diseases and often do not have symptoms, but can still cause liver damage and be passed on to other people. So, how do people get them? Hepatitis B and C are mainly passed from one person to another through blood contact, such as using unsterile medical equipment overseas, sharing toothbrushes and razors, some traditional cultural practices and treatments, etc., even when the blood is not visible. In many countries, many people get hepatitis from their mother when they are born. Hepatitis can also be passed through sexual contact. Remember, people do not get them from other ways such as sharing food, drinks, plates, cups, shaking hands, kissing, breastfeeding, sharing towels, toilet seats and so on. So, what can we do? Get tested. Ask your GP for specific hepatitis B or C tests as they are not included in the normal blood tests. If you do not have hepatitis B and never had it in the past after being tested, you can get the hepatitis B vaccination if you have never had the vaccine before. If you do have hepatitis B, you will need lifelong regular checkups with your doctor. Some people also need lifelong medicine to keep the virus under control and to reduce the risk of developing liver cirrhosis and liver cancer. You should avoid alcohol because it could make the hepatitis worse. Your family, your partner and people who are living with you should also get tested. If you do not have hepatitis C after testing, you should avoid contact with blood because there is no vaccine for hepatitis C. If you do have hepatitis C, there is medicine that can cure your hepatitis C. The treatment takes only 2 to 3 months. You can be reinfected by hepatitis C, so you should always avoid blood contact. Remember, get tested, save your liver, save your life. Tell your family and friends. For more information, please contact us at ECCQ at www.eccq.com.au/BBV.
A great initiative there by ECCQ, and please do, if you have any symptoms or anything like that, please do go and get tested as he mentioned, because it is very, very important. So World Hepatitis Day, which was on the 28th yesterday, and at the request we're sharing this video here, in the interest of community safety and of the health. So ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Australian Indian Radio's daily Facebook live update with Umesh Chandra. And once again, it's wonderful to have your company. Good to see you all. I hope your day has been going very well so far. But what is concerning and the major topic today is these new cases here in Queensland. We've heard from the Premier and we've heard from the Prime Minister. Let's see, right at the Parliament House where the announcements have been made.
Everyone good to go? Very good. Well, here in Queensland, we haven't had a new case of COVID-19 outside of quarantine since May. Today, we are confirming 2 new cases of COVID-19 here. Both likely acquired the disease interstate. They have a history of interstate travel. That brings our total number of cases to 1,078, 4 now in hospital, 7 of them active. Both of the new cases are 19-year-old women, one from Logan, one from Acacia Ridge. They are both now being cared for at the PA hospital. They both travelled together recently, including returning to Brisbane from Melbourne on the 21st of July via Sydney. They travelled on flights VA863 and VA977. The Queensland Health contact tracers are identifying close contacts from those flights. One of them works at Parklands Christian College, and you will have seen that families were notified of that potential exposure last night. I understand an event that was planned last night was cancelled and that the school is now closed while a deep clean of the school is undertaken. Close contacts at the school are being identified. Testing capability will be set up at the school and be operational this afternoon. Rapid testing capability will now be deployed right throughout the region. These young women have gone about their business within the communities that they live in, and so there will be a large amount of contact tracing to be done, largely within the Logan and Springfield areas, including shopping malls, restaurants and a church. Our contact tracers are doing that work right now. There are also a number of close contacts in both of their households that will now be ordered to quarantine. The most important message here is that anyone with any concern on the south side of Brisbane, but particularly in those Logan and Springfield Lake regions should go and get tested. We have.
So there you are. That's the latest there on that. If you are in Logan or Springfield Lakes area, go get yourself tested. As we know, these two have gone about their ways and been out in the community as normal, and they have been to a lot of places. So, if you are in those two areas, please, and if there's any doubts, go get yourself tested. Sometimes it breaks you with the mentality that people sometimes have. What about this case, the one that been few days old, and so everyone's been talking about? The case I'm talking about is the lady in Bunnings. So Tracy, who went to Bunnings, and of course, she's got quite a large number of followers on Facebook as well, because many people are supporting her stance. But when things like this happen in the community, it makes you wonder why and how do they get this kind of mentality.
I do not consent. We, the Australian people, do not consent to forced mask wearing. To the Australian government, you can take your control and your fear-based evilness away. We, the people, do not consent to these draconian laws. Be they gone.
So there you are. There's the mask. They're going up in flames. And as he says that, we don't need that. Well, right now, let's go overseas. And one of the things that's making big news out there is Trump, defending himself and reposting of that viral video. Let's take a very quick look at that, and then we'll cross over to Victoria and hear from Premier Daniel Andrews.
Mr. President, two questions quickly. First, can you clarify your position on the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine after you retweeted a video making claims that it is effective?
I wasn't making claims. It's recommendations of many other people, including doctors. Many doctors think it is extremely successful, the hydroxychloroquine, coupled with the zinc and perhaps the zithromycin. But many doctors think it's extremely good, and some people don't. Some people, I think it's become very political.
The woman that you said was a great doctor in that video that you retweeted last night said that masks don't work and there is a cure for COVID-19, both of which health experts say is not true. She's also made videos saying that doctors make medicine using DNA from aliens and that they're trying to create a vaccine to make you immune from becoming religious.
Well, maybe it's the same, maybe it's not, but I can tell you this. She was on air along with many other doctors. They were big fans of hydroxychloroquine, and I thought she was very impressive in the sense that from where she came, I don't know which country she comes from, but she said that she's had tremendous success with hundreds of different patients, and I thought her voice was an important voice, but I know nothing about her.
I leave the decision up to you. You be the judge. And as I said before, it's time now to have a listen to Daniel Andrews from Victoria.
Elective surgery other than for Category 1 and the most urgent Category 2 patients will be suspended forthwith. We will do our level best to honour those booked surgeries, so scheduled surgeries, but that will not run for very long. If you're outside the most urgent of Category 2 or in Category 3, although very little Category 3 surgery is being undertaken at the moment, then we will attempt to have your surgery done, but very soon all of that surgery will stop. So only the most urgent patients will be treated.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Australian Indian Radio and our daily Facebook Live updates. And apologies for bringing it late today. Unfortunately, fortunately, we had a very important meeting at the Brisbane City Hall this morning. And the big announcement will be coming your way very, very soon. So, stay tuned for that. But before we finish off, let's take a quick look at the upcoming events. If events are allowed to be, taking place, and if people are bold enough to go ahead with plans. But these are more of the community functions that are taking place at the moment, and some of them are the assistance that's being provided for people who might be victims of COVID-19. So online Dharma classes by Bal Sanskar Kendra. And as I've mentioned before, if you have any function or any event that you'd like to talk about, or on that matter, if there's any issue that you might like to discuss, any current affairs that you'd like to discuss, or like to say information, we'd like to welcome you onto the show. You can come in, via video link, via phone, or if you are cleared, and you can also come into the studios at the moment. But at the moment, we are not encouraging that. We can get you in by video link. We can get you in on the phone. But we want the voice to be heard. And if you have things that you'd like to share on the show, we'd be glad to, have you on the show and include you on the show. For all the people who have come on and the number of interviews that we have done so far, thank you so much for each and every interviewee, for your time, and of course sharing that valuable information with the community as well. So right now, the big talks going on about why and how this scenario happened here in Queensland. The 2 new cases, every day we were so happy returning, no new cases, and all of a sudden this happens, and it's sending shockwaves out there within the community, and of course it will also delay all the getting back to normality. As we know, there have been so much work that's been done in the area. Queensland, as the Premier says, is open for Queenslanders. You can travel around Queensland. That's no problem, but please don't go to Victoria or even some parts of New South Wales at the moment as well. So, we really need to look and listen and abide by those rules. So it's only for the betterment of everybody. So, don't risk it for yourself, but also the community at large as well. You must have the best interest of the community at large at all the times as well. Such irresponsible behavior and that attitudes, it is alarming to see that kind of things still happen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me from today. But just before we pen off for today, let's take a quick look at some of the headlines from India.
Celebrations of Global Tiger Day 2020 to be observed on 29 July kicked off. Union Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar releases detailed report of the 4th All India Tiger Estimation 2018 and poster on small wildcats of India.
Global Tiger Day
Bharatiya
2020.
Janata Party National President JP Nadda inaugurates 8 newly constructed party district offices in Jharkhand. Says Prime Minister Modi took right decisions since the beginning of Corona pandemic and gave the slogan "Jaan hai to Jahan hai" to interact with chief ministers of BJP-ruled states tomorrow. World Hepatitis Day being observed today. Lok Sabha Speaker, Union Health Minister, Union Law Minister and several other ministers attend the virtual empathy conclave. The theme for this year is Hepatitis Free Future. Total COVID-19 recovery cases in India crossed 9.5 lakh as over 30,000 recoveries recorded for the 5th successive day. Case fatality rate continues to improve and is further down at 2.25%. Global cases crossed 16.6 million mark with over 6.55 lakh fatalities. And former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak found guilty of all 7 charges in the first of several multi-million-dollar corruption trials. Najib pleaded not guilty to the charges of criminal breach of trust, money laundering and abuse of power.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for you today. It's been wonderful having your company. And don't forget that we are back at 10 a.m. tomorrow. We will only change the time if there is some very important meetings and things that have to be attended. So, you know, this morning we were at the Brisbane City Hall, and a wonderful announcement coming your way very, very soon. So with that, I'd like to say goodbye. It's been wonderful having your company. Until next time, be good and stay safe.